And you're live on Dead Radio.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Dead Radio with your main man, Bangy is Dead. Shout out BlackBrick, powered by the beautiful guys that play energy drink. Today we got a special guest. You know we only deal with special guests. She might not know this, but we don't intro our guests. Everybody intros themselves. So they can literally tell us who they think they are. So that I don't suck something out of my brain or whatever.
That's a lot of pressure. I
don't
really enjoy talking about myself. Just by the way.
So what she's gonna do, she's gonna literally introduce herself, and then we're gonna basically just get into it. So before I go, that's for me, that's for us, and that's for you. But at the same time, like I said, it's not an interview.
Gotcha.
It's really just a conversation.
Uh-huh.
You really don't have to look at the cameras.
No,
you're just here for ambiance.
Astro, you're here for the ambiance. That's basically what Bangy says. What a sad state of affairs.
Imagine, that's how you're gonna start this episode.
Astro's just here for the ambiance. You said it, I
did. That's so shady. I don't want to start an interview like that. And we're actually live.
It is what it is.
You gotta get into it. You're gonna introduce yourself. So, like,
okay.
Who are you?
Hi.
Time?
You're welcome. Jeez, I feel like I'm on a jam alley.
Imagine.
Hi, my name is.
So, seriously.
No, okay. So.
Talk to me like you're talking to a stranger. The first time I meet you today, I don't know who you are.
Hi, my name is Ziyanda Ngcobo.
Okay.
I'm a senior politics reporter at Newsroom Afrika.
Okay.
The second most watched channel in South Africa right now.
Alright.
According to our July numbers, shout out to that channel.
So you can't get the stats?
Yes,
okay.
because we built it from the ground up.
Okay.
I'm a journalist, I'm a senior politics reporter, I think I already mentioned that, so I think that's quite self-explanatory.
Yeah, it is. Okay.
I do politics mostly, but I mean, South Africa, everything is political and social and economic.
Do you prefer politics?
I do, because I think politics permeates everything. I did also study politics and international relations.
I didn't know that. Interesting.
At WITS, to my honours level. I completed that double major honours in politics and international relations in 2014. Jeez. And so but I mean, like my career started in radio actually.
Right.
And still my first love. Will always be my first love.
Why?
Because with radio it's more intimate.
Right. But it makes sense. What did you say? I would think visuals is more intimate.
No, radio is intimate in the sense that firstly it's more immediate.
Okay.
So people call in and they tell you, well, you're talking rubbish.
Right
now. I think it's more challenging.
Right.
In that aspect, because it forces you to frame your thoughts a little bit more before you air them and you put them out there, because you will be challenged on your thoughts.
Right.
And I think that radio is still one of the most powerful mediums, like, across the world. And radio, I include podcasts. It's still a powerful source and a powerful way to connect with people, more than television. Yes, people see you, but I think with radio, you speak to one person and you speak to them, and that's why you won't have, if you're a good radio host, you won't be saying
good radio
to the listeners. No, that is like Radio 101. You don't talk about listeners, you talk to the listener, because that is actually the foundation and the basics of radio. You're talking to the person.
So someone should feel like you're talking to them one-on-one, rather than it being like a mass thing. So they want to feel like...
It's not a mass thing, no, it's not radio.
Like you're focusing on it.
If you're, like I said, if you're a good radio person, you understand the fundamentals of radio, like old school radio, that's like for me. If I hear someone say to the listeners,
you're already changing.
No.
I didn't know that. I'm gonna take that. I'm gonna write that down.
I'm like, no, I can't. I really can't take you seriously. So I mean, funny story about how I got into radio.
We're gonna get to that, right? Before we get into that, I don't like cutting corners. Before we get into, I want to talk about your background.
Okay.
Why? Your background obviously made you who you are today.
Yeah.
That's like straight facts, you know what I mean? Like, we can't run away from that. So, where did you grow up? Where did you school? And we're just going to talk about everything as it develops.
Okay, sheesh. So, I grew up in KZN originally.
Right, okay.
I did junior primary, senior primary in Pinetown.
Okay.
I did 1 year at Westville Girls
Okay.
High School, and then I moved to Joburg and I went to Sagewood College,
Okay.
which is based in Midrand.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that I went to Wits to go do my undergrad and then my honours in politics and international relations.
Like, you already decided in high school what you wanted to study, like in university?
No, what I do know is that my parents were, I'd say I had the best parents here. My parents have always said, believe in yourself, you know what you want to do, and make sure that your aptitude matches your skills. And we always used to do those psychometric tests at school, where it's like you may have an aptitude for something, but you actually really suck at it. You know, and I think I've always leaned towards certain things. The radio thing surprised them, but I think we live in a world, banging, where like we're not just one thing. We're not like our parents' generation, where you're like a teacher for like
your whole life,
20, 30 years, and then, you know, we're like, even our turnover, we stay in a place 3 to 5 years, move on to the next thing, because the world is so intersectional now.
Things are moving.
So you can be someone who studied IT, but like you actually go work on a farm and using your IT skills to put together programs for calendars on how to work on a farm. Like our world is so integrated. I don't think, especially for our generation, that we think about things in
one thing specifically.
In one way, in a one-dimensional kind of a monolithic fashion. So in that sense, that's where I commend my parents, because they've always been open-minded. They've always said, it's your life. You're gonna have to live with whatever you need to do. And they always encouraged me to find my passion. Now that is such a tricky, open-ended thing. What is your passion?
Why do I lie?
What is my passion?
So in high school, what did you think you wanted to be? As an adult.
So I always wanted to be a diplomat, actually.
Okay.
Either I wanted to go into the arts, I actually wanted to be an actress.
Okay.
Or I wanted to be a diplomat. Like,
why a diplomat? I mean, I know why I would be a diplomat.
I think in that's actually where I think I understood my love for politics. I always felt like diplomacy in any situation,
you're good.
It's the art of the persuasion that comes with diplomacy that I think attracts me. Being able to actually say, if you find someone resolute in one idea or ideology, and through the art of persuasion, negotiation, and many other techniques and tools, you're able to change them and sway them, and that's how the world is the way the world is. So I've always just been curious about the way the world works. Like, I was actually very strong in business studies, so I also thought at some stage I might take on commerce, or at some stage also I wanted to be a lawyer. And then I did law for a year in varsity, and I was like, yeah, it's so slow. I'll only be a judge maybe in like 20 years, 15, 20 years. I'm like, nah.
So you did it for a year?
Hey, I did it for a year. I go back to it. So I did economics, politics, law, and international relations as my majors in first year. And then second year I focused on, human rights, international relations, and politics. So I still stuck with it. I think I'd still go back and do law.
Why?
Just as a must have. I think law is a good degree to have under your belt, actually.
I think I agree because one thing I've noticed, because the last episode we were talking to an advocate, and the one thing I caught on with him is that he was really good at debating, and not debating in the sense of sucking stuff out of his thumb, but he would always debate with facts, and even if it was diverting to something that was just like corresponding with the argument or the debate that we had. And that's one thing that I caught on, that like, so one thing that lawyers or law teaches people is how to debate, obviously, because that's what's going to
be. And I did debating in high school, and I was pretty good at it too. So this is why I go back to law. I think I love being persuaded into a different. That's also what law does, and that's what also public speaking and debating does. You know, it's saying you come with your argument, I'll come with mine, and also being able to disagree healthily, which I don't think we're able to do much lately with social media. I think
so you're wrong or you're right. We can never have
always in black and white. Yeah, there's no nuance in a lot of the debates that we have in this country, I think, and that's I think that's why I do what I do.
Right.
So I never ever thought I would be a journalist. It wasn't even something I would crave. Like
that's why I was surprised
on TV and then crave. It was never no.
Yeah, I was
like not even once in my primary school, high school. Even varsity days, did I think that I'd become a journalist?
I was super surprised when I saw you. I was like,
well, but you have to give the context of how you know me firstly.
Okay,
that's why you would be stupid surprised.
No, like I said before we even started this, that like you never bump into like a reporter that you know. Like there's never really like a point of reference to any reporter. Like reporters look like people that are so out of touch with me, like they're out of reach, like to the average human being.
Saying we're out of touch.
No, like out of reach. Let me say out of reach. You know, like so out of reach. Like you never either see them or really know one. So when I saw you on TV, I was like, oh shit, like
you must actually declare where you know me from.
High school. I mean, I know you from high school, but like, you know what I mean? Like high school parties. Like, and it's actually one thing I was thinking about today, like as to why I would want you on episodes, that everyone that I went to high school with, they kind of went in the direction that we all knew they were going to.
Oh, yeah?
Like there was never someone who had a job that shocked me type thing.
Oh, really?
Except yours. Like yours was just like, is that what she knew she wanted to do all along?
No.
Or did it just happen? And that's why I was like, this is definitely something I'd like to have a conversation about, and like just even on a platform of this nature.
Yeah.
To just kind of see how it happened, what you did to get to that job, and etc. 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 You know what I mean? So
I stumbled into journalism.
Okay, cool. But you finished politics. You were studying politics and what?
And international relations.
And then you finished that, and then you went to radio, I'm assuming.
So that happened all in Boston, and how I stumbled into it. Wits Beer Garden 20
Beer Garden.
Wits Beer Garden.
I never saw that coming.
And that's what I was saying, I stumbled into it. So like my friends and I were always, 2013 was my last year in varsity, and the year before, there was always this thing that, you know, I don't have proper hobbies. Like my father and his siblings and my mom as well, like they grew up having proper siblings and hobbies.
Right.
Like my dad was like, he did karate up to brown belt.
Right.
He didn't get to black belt because he had an injury, but like, you know, my grandfather played the piano. Like
real hobbies.
Like real hobbies. Like going out with your friends is not a real hobby, eh?
Right.
Like, you know, in your CV you write hobbies.
You can't say going out for lunch.
Like, what is your hobby? Like, we actually don't have hobbies. Like, what is it? Swimming or, you know. So I always used to lament this with my friends. Like, you know, okay, I did do public speaking and debating a bit in varsity, but then my schedule, you know, just got crazy at some stage. So Wits Beer Garden, a year later, after all this lamenting, whatever, my friends are like, hey, you always people are always telling you that you have a voice for radio. There's the voice of Wits thingy. Go. I was like, oh, okay, fine. Went up, I signed up.
Okay.
Signed up, and I was like, yeah, but I'm not going to be an entertainment person. I was like, no, it's you need a hobby that's also not going to be too disruptive of your lifestyle and like who you are personality-wise. So I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to have that kind of energy every day for the music side of the radio station. So I applied for News. I was like, let's see. And then I got in.
Okay.
And then I did News at Vow FM. Met some really cool peeps. Like Vow FM was really the start of my journalism career, honestly. And all because my friends dared me, like, if you say you've got a voice for radio, go test.
Let's see.
You just go test. You've been saying you don't have a hobby.
That's crazy.
This could be your hobby. And I was like, yeah, who knows? Started off reading like news bulletins.
Were you nervous?
No, not really, actually.
So you just got into it, like.
Well, I mean, you get inducted into it. So they had a really good program of how things would work, where they start you off, what they make you do, etc., etc. And as I was doing the radio, and then fast forward to 2014, I realized, because I always used to cry about how the space that I was in and the conversations I was having was so elite and so like exclusive. I was like, there's such important conversations
with your friends.
About, no, I'm talking about like in honors you, like there's like 15 of you in a class. And we're having such important conversations about the transformation of this country. And boom, 2015, this fees must fall. So we're talking about transformation, race relations, the politics of memory, all of that, and I always used to be like, man, I wish this could be on a larger scale, with many other ideas, and that's what radio became for me. Where like that's the platform. Like I had an aha moment. This is the platform, where it's like, let's have conversations, not just 15 people in a classroom because your parents happen to be able to afford school fees in university, or maybe you were fortunate enough to get a bursary. I was on a bursary at the time as well. But actually, this is a conversation that affects all of us. It affects all of us. Transformation still bedevils this country.
100%.
Race and race relations in this country. In fact, the conversation we're having, I would even say, to a certain extent, we predicted fees must fall. We predicted escalated. So by the time it happened, we weren't shocked. Maybe what I was shocked about was the extent to which...
How far it went,
how far it went, you can't predict that. But the fact that these issues were boiling under, these were discussions we had been having, actually. And that's the thing. It is quite elitist. 15 people in a classroom talking about the policies of this country, talking about the makeup of the state, important conversations that young people need to be having across the board,
100%.
Understanding just how things work. So that's what radio did for me,
So you were able to do that, like not necessarily on a large scale, but you are able to share your opinions and your thoughts to more than just 15 people in a nutshell.
Well, I mean, at Vow FM, I wasn't really doing opinions. I mean, there I was just writing bulletins, but I was able to, at some stage, yes. Then I formed part of a current affairs show, which won an MTN radio award, which also was a good stamp of approval in 2014 to say, oh, actually, okay, then I can do this radio thing, and I do it well. So I was a co-host of the current affairs show at Vow FM, and that's where I suppose then we were able to talk about the issues, and that's when I was able to bring in what sometimes what we were discussing in class to the show, and sometimes not in the bulletins but in the conversations I'd have with the radio host. About a particular story, because it was always, somewhat linked to the politics of the country, and intergenerational trauma that, you know, the youth of this country may be experiencing, and that is also, you know, one of the undercurrents of, you know, the Fees Must Fall movement, amongst many other issues. So, yeah, I think I had an aha moment where, like, actually this is what I can do. Yeah, because I was so passionate about, like, this.
The passion started.
We can't just be having these conversations in that classroom alone. Right. And the level of debate and the issues we were debating were critical, but I just always felt like, but now,
just for 15 people.
How do we make sure that this gets out there? You know, not on some, because we want to drive the agenda, but whose agenda is it anyway?
Yeah, and who's sparking these conversations?
Whose agenda 100%. Is it anyway? Yeah.
Right, so how long were you there?
At VowFM.
Yeah, at VowFM.
So, okay, and then at VowFM, they had a relationship with Eyewitness News where they basically, that is their, what is it? Is it feeding ground? Where that's where they poach.
Oh, yeah, okay.
So 2013 I got in, 2014 I was still at VowFM. And 2014 I'm concluding my honors degree, and I'm like, I'm actually so young. I don't want to go straight into my master's.
Right.
By the way, in my mind, I'm still going the UN route. Yeah.
So you wanted to go?
I was still going the UN diplomacy route.
So that was.
So I was still there.
Right.
But then in 2014, I'm 21.
Okay.
So I'm like, I'm done with my honors, but I don't want to be a 22-year-old, 23-year-old who's overqualified.
Yeah.
So I'm like,
why not?
No, because in South Africa, the labor market is very fickle.
Right.
It will be difficult to get a job.
Okay.
Or if I get a job, I'm a master's graduate, but I'm getting paid nonsense. Like the level of your qualifications in South Africa is sometimes not. No, it's not considered. It doesn't matter about age.
So what's mainly considered? Would you say?
It's experience, and that's always the debate. That's always in the news. How do you expect someone who's just come out of varsity to have work experience? You're saying, oh, you want someone with 3 years experience,
right?
And you're like, but
they just came out of
varsity. Right, it's ridiculous.
Right, 100%.
So our labor market is just it's disjointed with the realities
it's not realistic.
Of the realities of actually like young people in this country. So nevertheless, and then I start planning ahead. So that's another thing. If you want to be successful in your career and in life, I was always planning at the beginning of 2014. In fact, at the end of 2013, going into 2014, I was already thinking about what I'm going to do after my honors, especially because I found that like people don't take social sciences seriously in South Africa.
Right.
So even funding for your schooling is difficult. They'll always pay for law. They'll always pay for accounting and engineering. And then fees must fall happen. And then who are you calling? Yes. The social scientist. You're calling the political analyst. You're calling, the psychoanalyst.
That kind of doesn't make any sense.
To come and analyze what is happening in the country. But it doesn't make sense. You don't fund these people. The level of funding for social sciences students is like appalling.
Wow.
In South Africa.
You would think it's not in such a country that's so political. I feel like.
Yeah, you understand.
I don't even focus
How
on
are so many psychologists?
Country.
How are so many psychologists in this country unemployed when? So much
really
is happening in life. For an example, I already knew that I was alive to that reality because even me getting a scholarship was like, it was such a difficult thing just for my degree. Sort of like have to say I'm going to do BA law and then change like halfway, or you have to find a way to make it sexy for those who will be paying for your tuition. So I knew that. So I knew I had to start planning ahead. And so 2013 going to 2014, then I found out that VowFM has a relationship with Eyewitness News, which broadcasts on 702, Cape Talk, 947 and KFM.
Right.
So then I'm like, okay, let me just apply for an internship. It was meant to be my gap year.
Right.
It was supposed to be my gap year. And then I was going to go back and do my master's, like after a year or two. Because I always also believed in having more than one skill. Like I'm saying, it goes back to even the hobbies thing. Like you just need to be a cultured, well-rounded human being.
Right.
Like, it's just the kind of like family that I come from. You can't just be about books, or you can't just be about your arts. Like you need to be a well-rounded human being who
needs to know what's going on,
who is multifaceted and who sometimes got skills. Like some people just have skills. They may not use them every day, but I just have it. Like, hey, I happen to be able to play grade 4 piano. I may not use that skill every day, but it's still a skill to have. Nevertheless, it makes you more cultured. It makes you more exposed to things. So then there was that internship, the relationship between BlackBrick and EW, and it was meant to be my gap year. And then
you got the internship, I'm assuming.
I got the internship, and then I never left.
What do you mean you never left? So there was no gap year.
There was no gap year.
You basically got a permanent job.
I got a permanent job. 2 months into it, my boss there, who happens to be my boss now, Katie Kezapoto, she was like, I want to hire you immediately. Because the agreement was
crazy.
The agreement was that I work half and half. So I'd work at VowFN.
Yeah.
And then I'd also work at EW, and that's 2015.
Right.
And then I did try and leave, and then many people convinced me, like, no, there's no need for you to leave. You're born for this. Maybe you're born for this. You're meant to do this.
That's crazy.
And then my plans just, 2015, 2016, 17, 18. And
now.
But part of why I moved so quickly, VowFM gave me a solid foundation. By the time I got to commercial radio,
you already knew what's going on.
I knew how to read, I knew how to write the news, I bulletins, I knew how to cut. Like I got to EWN and it wasn't like much in terms of the technical skills.
Right.
So I always take my career back all the way to 2013. That's where it started. It didn't start when I joined EWN. It started when I joined VowFM, where I got intensive training.
Right.
How do you find stories? How do you source them? What are the fundamentals?
So would you find the stories yourself?
Yeah, we would.
Dope.
Sometimes we'd also pick up on what other publications are running with.
Right, and just dig more.
Yeah, I mean, at a campus radio level, you're also resource stretched, but like we were pushed, we were really, really pushed quite hard. But what I actually enjoyed also about journalism, which I always found difficult about my degree, was that I loved what I was doing. I really, really loved what I was doing. But I didn't see myself sitting behind a desk as a researcher. I was like, it's not my personality. I like to see people. I want to talk to people.
Right. And ask questions.
Like, I don't want to just read journal articles.
So you told them specifically that you want to be a field...
No. So field reporting, yes, that's what I signed up for when I signed up at VowFM. But what I'm saying is that in terms of the career path that I thought I really wanted, which is UN diplomacy, a lot of it had to do with like research and sitting and reading and sitting behind the desk and whatever. Research is very important.
Right.
And I think that's also helps me be good at what I do because I actually have the research background. Because research also helps you ask the right questions and how to source information, which is also a lot of what you do as a journalist. You source information. Right. So can you see that intersectional thing?
It's just a huge ass cross-pollination.
Yeah. So sourcing information. When do you know that the information is credible and legitimate? Who to speak to, etc. So we do a lot of that in like the research world. It's just obviously there's just a whole lot more digging and questioning in the research world. So I just found like I didn't want to sit behind the desk. So journalism was great because I was out there, man. I was out there. Something new every day because I hate routine. I also hate.
Of course, It's not you alone. I think it's our generation. I think a lot of people in our generation hate routine, but to a certain degree, someone's got to do it.
Yeah, so I
hate
can't
routine.
Monotony is not my vibe at all.
Right.
So journalism does that for me. It throws you into things that you never thought you would be thrown into.
And have you ever done a story that you didn't want to do? Or post?
Oh, there are many stories that you do that you don't want to.
And how do you handle that? Do you just do it because it's a job? Like, how do you kind of separate yourself from the reporter?
Well, the thing is, the first thing is that it's not about you.
Okay.
As a journalist, you're in many ways a service provider.
Okay.
That's why sometimes, like, I find it uncomfortable talking about myself because you're not supposed to be the story.
Right.
You're meant to tell the story. That's why you're a medium. You're in the media. Medium. Things come, they pass through you.
So you're basically just the middleman.
I'm the middleman. So the middleman never shines anyway.
Right.
There's no middleman that should ever be the one now taking charge. And
if they are, that's a problem. Right.
That's a problem.
Right.
Because there's the story. The viewer or the listener or the reader is the most important person. They are your clients, if I could put it that way. So when you're faced with a story that you don't want to do, you need to think about the disservice that you are doing to your client.
And many other people that are
watching.
And
many other people. You need to think about the disservice that you may be doing even to the country.
Right.
By not highlighting a certain plight or a certain story. So that's how I've always approached it. Of course, we're people, we're humans. And what I like about what's happening now in our industry is that we're talking a lot about the mental health of journalists because we're always like, we act like we're made of steel and like, yeah, it's not about me and I can do this, like, and I've got this, and, you know, and we come across some very harsh situations. I remember doing a story some years ago. I think I was actually taking over, following up from a colleague's story about some horror house where children were being raped perpetually and whatever, and by their stepfather, and they were living in a basement, if I remember correctly.
I remember that story.
And I had to go cover. It wasn't my story, but it was my colleague's story. And that's when I came back to the office. I was like, yeah, no, I don't think I have the strength for child abuse stories, rape stories, but we have to do it.
Right.
That also forms part of the politics of the country, by the way. Gender-based violence in this country
100%.
is very political. So, but I'm just saying, like,
why would you say it's political? I'm just curious.
Because of the lack of action that is taking place, and that the situation, if you look at the statistics as far back as like 1997, 1998, already, I think there's a speech that I once read of by Nelson Mandela where he was in Parliament and he was really warning about the alarming rate of gender-based violence. That was then. Right. And the alarming rate then is it's like a walk in the park compared to
what it is
the statistics now.
Right.
So it's a lot of you know, how to deal with gender-based violence is political because it needs a political will. You need to fund centers and shelters where women can go. You need to fund campaigns in a sensible manner, not give lip service. You need to ensure that institutions like the Center for Gender Equality are actually left alone to do their jobs without political influence.
Right.
You're just putting employees of an ex-political party there to just maintain your own political interest as an organization. But what about the country? What about the women who are suffering? So it's political.
100%.
It's very political.
No,
there are institutions that are there that at some stage were functioning, but then they become paralyzed because of political influence.
Right.
Or you find as a way to punish an organization, if, for instance, they call out a politician or someone who's a funder, then they cut the funders.
Right.
They cut the funding.
But I don't think about the large
thing
that's going to happen when they do that.
Right. For me, if you look at, like I'm saying, the statistics in the 90s and now, you ask yourself, what was happening all this time?
Nothing.
What was being done or not being done? You get me?
Yeah.
So yeah, anyway, I came back from that story and I was like, oh, hell no. I was like, I'm quite sure I don't want to do this anymore. But you have to. Most people who have like a specific beat, and when you say beat in the newsroom means like you, like me, I'm a politics reporter, whatever, you have a particular beat, either you do business or this, you would have come from general reporting. You don't
so
just
a beat is a specific topic that you do?
Yeah, it's like a specific kind of like your niche.
Okay.
So to speak, you know, either you do legal reporting or political reporting.
So what will they be like? They'll be like, Ziyanda, there's something happening there, that's your beat.
Well, no, I sort of stepped into my beat, if that's the way to put it.
Okay.
Like I also didn't plan to be a politics reporter, but I found myself gravitating towards that.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So you transition from radio to TV, I'm assuming. What are the challenges that happen when you get into that? Because obviously it's completely different now. You can't just go to the studio with sweatpants.
Hell no.
Sweatpants and a cap.
No, but you know the nice thing about that is Newsroom's given us a lot of support. We have a wardrobe department, we have a makeup department. Like we and you know this. I think that's the beauty of starting my TV career with a startup channel.
Right.
Because Newsroom Afrika only started in 2019 and launched in 2019. So the culture, the way we do things, like we are part of the reason why it's like that. We form part of that. Form part of living out the vision of the founders of the organization. You know. And yeah, because the beauty of something new, as challenging as it might be, it also gives a great opportunity to do things the way you want to. You don't walk into an institution where they say, we don't do things like that. So there's room to experiment.
You can create a new blueprint.
You can create a new blueprint. You can create a new culture, a new way of doing things in comparison, or differently, I should say, to what was previously done. So the transition was difficult, but not so much. So interestingly, when I started in Newsroom Afrika, I was the bureau chief for KZN.
Okay.
Which is basically like, you're like the regional manager.
In which sense?
In that sense.
Regional manager of the new...
Of Newsroom Afrika, yes. So I was the head of... I was the head of the KZN region.
Okay. That sounds like a serious job.
Yeah, it was. It was.
That sounds very serious.
Yeah, it was very serious.
Very serious.
But the reason I'm telling you is because it helped me get into understanding TV very quickly, the technical side, the this, the that. Because it's a startup. So I knew a lot about the KZN region. It was also like my beat for like 3 years.
Okay.
But now television, how do you tell stories visually? I knew how to play with sound, I played with radio, like I did podcasts,
But not serious.
But not visual.
Yeah.
So it's a different way of telling stories. But I think the transition was fine. Because if you're a storyteller, you're a storyteller.
100%.
It's just a matter about learning new techniques maybe and okay, so on TV you do it like this or like that, but in terms of the fundamentals, you sort of like, you know, have that unlock.
Right.
Yeah.
So then you become a senior reporter at Newsroom Afrika. I actually really followed the story of how it came to what it was, because they took over ANN7, if I'm not mistaken.
ANN7, yeah.
Even the channel and ANN7 had this whole... They had like bad press, if I can keep it 100, because they were so cold owned by the Guptas and they had to push a specific narrative. I'm sure you've watched this thing on Showmax, How to Buy a Country, something of that nature. What's it called again? I'm sure you've watched it.
I haven't actually watched that.
You should. It's quite interesting. As a reporter, you should. Especially political. It's quite interesting, but I don't like it because it's a bit too biased. I think it's biased.
I'm watching I just finished How to Become a Tyrant. I enjoyed that.
I didn't enjoy it because I felt like I was biased as well. Like I watched it like halfway.
It does take as a political science student. It was very westernized.
Very like they focus on specific people way too much than the others. That's one thing that I caught on like on the first few episodes, and that's when I was just like, I don't like watching political things that are too biased because I always feel like they're pushing a narrative. They're pushing a narrative for us to see that specific person in this way, and I don't like that. I don't like when.
At what point do you feel uncomfortable and feel like a narrative is being pushed?
There's too much of one thing. When there's just too much of one thing.
I'm just curious. As someone who's on the other side.
Look, I can make an example. I could make a perfect example. It's literally what I said in the last episode. It's like how respectfully, seeing that you work for a publication, during the Zuma term, right? I don't know if you're allowed to talk about this, but during the Zuma term and the current president's term, because I paid attention to publications and the stories and the headlines, I could easily see the transition and to see that, okay, there's a specific propaganda or narrative that was pushed then that isn't pushed now.
Like?
Everything was blamed on Zuma. If you're being quite honest, like every single thing, like there's load shedding, Zuma. People are striking the road, Zuma. The sun went down, Zuma. You know what I mean? Like, everything was blamed on the president. Like,
so what did you want to hear more of?
What they're doing now. Like now they put in specific people that are supposed to be manning those occupations, those jobs. They holding them accountable. We're hearing about your Speckers, if that's the right name, the CEO of ESCOM.
Andre de Ruyter.
Yeah, that guy. His name is coming up quite a lot as of late. You're hearing your Popomole affairs. You're hearing like a lot of people, whereas in the Zuma term, there's one finger. So now my question is, what narrative was being pushed then that isn't being pushed now? Because now you barely hear the president's name. Even with everything that's happening with COVID, with the looting of the PPE funds, we barely hear the president's name. Whereas if you're being quite honest, if it was in Zuma's term, the PPE looting, they're not going to blame Zuma. They blame him for everything.
I mean, your question is very loaded. I'm not sure I'm getting what you're asking.
No, so it's actually not asking a question.
I think you're making a statement.
I'm making a statement, but I'm building up to a question. So, for you guys, or for you as a news reporter, when you look at other publications, could you point out when there is a narrative being pushed? Because obviously you have a cleaner eye or a cleaner ear to finger point some of these moments where you're like, okay, that's not necessarily how you should speak about something. Like, do you ever
I mean, the thing is,
that's like a bit too biased?
Look, I think there's a sort of, and I think it's safe to say that I speak for most of us. Yes, we see what other publications do, but you don't throw stones from your glass house.
Okay.
That's the thing, right?
Yes, it is. Yes. Why do you say glass house?
In the sense that every newsroom has its own editorial policies. Every newsroom has its own stylistic way of telling stories. Every newsroom also has space to make mistakes.
Right. But you guys, I haven't heard of a mistake from you guys thus far.
No, mistakes are not good because they affect your credibility.
Of course, but
it's human beings working at the end of the day.
Of course.
And it's human beings who come from certain backgrounds, who have different beliefs, who have different ways of seeing the world.
Right.
So I think I'll leave it at that.
Yeah.
I think I don't want to get drawn into the narratives thing. And,
you definitely can't. I get it.
I know. You know, there's a body called the South African National Editors Forum. They also did a report about brown envelope reporters, people who are allegedly getting money from newsmakers to tell stories in a certain way. So we've also gone through difficult time as an industry. And from what I sense from what you were saying is that there is a trust deficit from people who read and consume the news,
right?
Because of the mistakes or the deliberate pushing of narratives or the deliberate manner in which people have used the journalism profession to push political agendas.
Yes.
So the trust deficit I can't sit here and pretend that I know that it exists. But I think for the most part, this country has journalists who care about this country deeply, who care about seeing this country progress and actually live up to its democratic principles and values. But understanding though that the media space is a powerful platform. It's a powerful space it influences people. So naturally there would be opportunists,
of course,
and people who would want to use the platforms or publications, as you put it, that exist to push narratives or this or that.
Because you guys have direct influence, unfiltered.
Yeah. So in that aspect, there are many factors. That needs to be considered. I mean, that's why we're called the fourth estate. We're the extension of the state in many ways. So it's a very powerful position to be in, but it comes with a lot of responsibilities. But you know what the positive is?
Yes.
Is the fact that, like, young people, for me, I said young people care about the news now, like more than I think they used to before. They 100%. Care and they question what is being said to them, how it's being said to them, why that headline's written like that, the framing of things. That is so important. Right. That shows a country that cares, that shows a citizenry that actually gives a damn.
Yeah.
So the fact that you are saying this is the way you see it during the Zuma era now and how the media is doing things, that is more than okay. It's actually brilliant because it means people are paying attention, people are alert, people are taking an active participation in the country they live in the democracy that they live in, and they want to see it work.
Right.
And I often see on social media people sometimes taking on publications, even the photo they use with the matching of the headline, etc., etc. And like I'm saying, sometimes at the end of the day we're humans and people come from different backgrounds and so I mean in some newsrooms there's been a lot of emphasis, for example, on diversity training as well.
Okay.
What do you do with someone who's grown up in a particular background and they've never been exposed to a band who comes from a different particular background? How do these two people work together? How do they relate to each other? How do they, these two people can approach a story in a very different ways just by virtue of the background that 100%. They come from. So that's where diversity training comes, and that's where the strength of your editorial policies and the people who are meant to be filtering content come in.
Right.
That's why you find a lot of the times, within the space, people talk about how there's just been a juniorization of the newsroom, or maybe there isn't enough institutional memory because there was a stage where, the oldies were like, oh, you're not digitizing quickly enough, or you're not moving with the pace of things. But these are the people who would have, who will know what happened way before. I mean, that's all part of, the content generation. Also, what diversity training also does is it also helps you question your own biases. We all have biases.
100%.
You do, I do.
We all do.
We all do.
We all do.
And it's managing your own bias versus what you actually need to do. And that's why I always say the basics is ensuring that it's not about you, it's about the community or the client that you're meant to be servicing. Once you take that disposition, I think everything becomes easier. What then becomes difficult then is it's not to say what exactly does your audience want per se, but what will make it interesting for your audience.
All right.
And that's where sometimes then some people get caught up in sensationalism and all of that, where it's like, if you just tell the story and tell the story in a really good way, I promise you, people will sit up and listen to what you have to say. You don't have to be dramatic. You don't have to add spice and or be shady or whatever, or be personal about or with the newsmakers that you're interacting with.
Right. Has there been at any point where the news report kind of get into your personal life, where you bump into someone and they, let's say you report a specific story and someone now wants to threaten your life for argument's sake?
Yeah, that happens quite a lot. I mean, not threaten your life, but I mean, like I said, it's like the media space is an ideation space,
right? And
people are always, it's like a jostling for ideas and space for ideas and perspectives and thoughts and so yeah, I mean, newsmakers will always try and influence you one way or the other.
Right.
That's where you go back to the facts.
Right.
You go back to journalism 101. Who, what, when, where, how, why.
Right.
You go back to the client that you're serving. You go back to looking at this person. Are they trying to push an agenda? And if there is an agenda, what agenda is it, and whose agenda is it serving? Like there's a lot of things that
sounds so interesting.
Like you have to balance up a lot of things.
Right.
And filter a lot of things. I mean, I remember when I was in KZN, I stayed there for about 3 years. Bit of radio, bit of TV. I used to do a lot of stories on political killings at the height of and the peak of political killings in KZN.
I remember that. Both. I still saw a documentary and you're like, it's actually a documentary that's
I was
actually pretty shocked to see on that.
Yeah, so I mean, I
had
to go deep in the underbelly, like I'm talking gabbies and you know, funnily enough, like sometimes, like with this job, you do one thing and it leads you to the next and leads you to the next, and before you know it, you're deep.
Yeah, it's like dominoes.
Like, you're just like, you're just deep in it. Like, I never thought I'd be
probably like invested, like, yo, what's actually really going on?
Yeah, because like that's the thing. Like, you get curious and then you're like, puzzle, and like I love puzzles, so you're like, and then can you put me in touch with this and this person, and then before you know it, and then someone says, have you considered this and this, then you start investigating, and then before you know it, you're like,
you need deep.
Yeah, you need deep in it, and you're like, well, now I need to bring it all back together.
Right.
You know,
right.
So I'm going back to this thing about threats or whatever. You see, it also got to a point where you needed to understand when you're being threatened and how you're being threatened. And that's why you need to be guarded about where you are, your environment. You need to understand your environment very well.
Right.
I remember, and it was a time when Cindy Somakaka, former NC Youth League leader, was shot. And I can't remember, I think it was during his funeral.
Sorry to interrupt. Is this the same guy that went missing?
No.
And then they found, because there's another one, I watched something on Inside Factor where there's a ANC something that's...
No. He was shot and then he eventually died in hospital.
Okay.
And in mysterious circumstances. Well, under circumstances that are disputed, let me put it like that.
Okay.
So anyway, to make an example about environment, I remember I was there for the memorial service, yes. Are you going to be sleeping here? And I'm like, yeah, you know, I'm booked not far away from here. And this person says, yeah, I think you should just go home today. And I was like, huh? And he's like, yeah, I think it would be better if you just sleep in your own bed today. I was like, eh? And I was like, whoa.
Sorry, what?
Then I was like, oh.
Yeah.
I was like, whoa.
He's telling you
there's a hit on my life.
But he's telling you politely, like, yo, go home.
I just think it would be better
for you to go home, man.
For you to go home and sleep in your own bed. Because, you know, you're like, and casually, and I was not thinking about this question at this point. It's like, yeah, upukile, and I'm like, yeah, express. But okay, how woman about Apela now, Gihamba Neto, is me traveling Neto, and then the Munta Camperman, I'm going to Joe Velu, like welcome the Kawi, eh? In there, but I'm Jay. But I'm Jay, I found
what the fuck?
I'm going to Joey, like, often joke like Peter Mark on I'm Shanch. Then you catch a lady like,
I think I'm going home.
Person onto something. I don't know why they told me that I need to sleep in my own bed, but I didn't sleep in that accommodation. And I mean.
So what did you choose to go somewhere else, or did you actually go home? You actually went home?
Yes, I drove back home.
Okay.
I wrapped it up and I went back home.
So you listened up to that home, you're like, okay, cool.
Look,
that's crazy.
That's understanding your environment, the people you're speaking to, who's who in the zoo.
Yeah.
And when it's a polite word, so he's not saying Sisi
Zobulal. No, just saying yo.
Isn't this a shoe? He's just like, yeah, babes,
that's crazy.
You win, eh?
That's really
so
nuts.
That's understanding the people you speak to, but yeah, no, it's a gentle warning, eh?
Right.
Take it or leave it, but that's up to you. And I mean, because I've been in the underbelly, I knew the language and how these people speak and how they say it, drop hints and how they, you know, they never direct.
Yeah.
Never direct. And I always say to people, I mean, it's a bit of a sadistic joke, but I always say to people, you know, one thing I found about Gabbies and Candid, and they finish off the job, eh?
Yeah.
They're not like
one way or the other.
They're not like the one in the Western Cape where they'll shoot you and you lift it to the tail. If there's a mark on your back,
one way or the other.
They'll even finish you off in hospital.
100%.
So I got into the underbelly that deep. That's what I'm saying. That day I was like, oh. Let's say I'll go back.
So I'm assuming your judgment and character is pretty good at this point in time. I mean,
no, it depends. I mean, you can't put me in Afghanistan and say, man.
I mean, of course.
So yes, you do have like your what you call it. You do have your basic tools.
Of course.
For certain things. But every story is different, and research really, really helps. You know, by the way, I never even told my editors that thing. I was like, I'm just not going to sleep at that place they booked me at, and I'm going to go home. Keep it moving.
Did you drive back the next day?
No, I drove back the same day.
Oh, okay. That's nuts.
Yeah.
That's nuts.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
So now, I'm assuming you're like very comfortable with your job. I mean, I wouldn't call it a job. Can I say a passion? Because you're really into it now. Like you really need deep into it.
I also really call it a passion.
Right. Okay. Before we go, got something called Inspiration 101. It's basically what you tell people. Your mantras in a nutshell, like things you live by daily.
For so many different things.
Summarize.
You need to be specific.
No, summarize your life mantras. Like, what do you tell yourself?
Mantras.
You've lived to a point where you're doing what you didn't think you'd be doing.
Yeah.
But you found it as your passion. I'm sure you've had some challenges throughout the way. And there's certain things you told yourself that kept you moving. So what are those things?
Always.
It doesn't have to be that deep.
Okay, I have a fundamental principle: always be yourself. And when I say always be yourself, I'll say stay true to yourself. I know, like everyone likes to say that, but I mean, like, especially in the job that I do, never lose the core values that you were brought up with.
Right.
Because once you lose that, you lose yourself, and then you lose everything, I think. Also, I believe in having a really good work ethic.
Right.
It doesn't matter how talented you are, but if you've got a pathetic work ethic, you'll go nowhere.
Right.
And people won't like it. No one likes to work with a lazy bugger. Like, everybody's load.
Yeah.
So, you know.
I have to work with that guy again. Or this girl again. have to do all the work.
No, and that's why I hate group work generally.
Because of bangy.
Because of the bangies of the world.
Gosh.
Like, everything's so tired, you know. What's kept me going? I think also having a good support system has helped me a lot. Family and friends, like, and keep that core. Right. Keep that core, like, be loyal to your people, take care of your people, and they'll take care of you back.
100%.
Always, and that's why I've got like friends all the way back from primary school,
right,
like high school, varsity, because circumstances change, people grow, but if, like I'm saying, if you stick to your core values and principles,
you basically don't change.
I've always been the same, you know, like right. I may not have always thought I was going to be a journalist, but I'm still the same person, you know, and yeah, what else keeps me going? I think being open-minded and allowing the universe to take you where it wants you has helped me a lot.
Of course.
So if I had been rigid, I may have gone to the UN and I may have done my masters and gotten, but hated it.
Right.
I allowed the universe to take me where it wants to. I never said, oh, okay, I'm done with my internship, I'm going back. I just went with it. I was like, let's see how far this can take me. Let's see.
So you basically just followed your intuition.
Basically, actually, that's a very fundamental thing that I do. Like, I follow my intuition through and through. Like, and this is why people sometimes don't believe me when I say I didn't plan my career.
Right.
It's just always maintaining a high work ethic and paying attention to detail and just wanting to be the best at what you do, not because it's in comparison to others, but because it's the best that you could do.
Right.
That's what catapults me to the next step and the next step. You know, I have a podcast, next thing I'm at Al Jazeera, next thing I'm Purity, because I'm always just pushing to be the best version of myself.
Right.
It's a very corny line, but
I don't think anything is corny.
True. Like, because you're like, that's how I was last year, oh my gosh, this year, and oh my gosh, you know, not looking at what the next person is doing will save you a lot of headaches,
100%. 100%.
Like my
straight
parents
facts.
told me that, like, at a young age, and I think that's the
straight fact.
That's the one thing that saved me. I really don't bother myself about how far Benny is in his career. We're the same age. He's there and I'm there. I don't do that nonsense.
I kind of do you know what I do?
If I'm doing it, it's because you're inspiring me. I'm like, you know what, Benny? What? He's there. I'm like, oh no, I gotta move. I'm like, pull up your socks, girl. Like, you can do it. If Benny can do it, I can do it. Not because I'm like, yo, that zellaring because of another person. That thing kills a lot of people.
It does.
For no reason. And then what does it make you do? It forgets to make you yourself.
Right, because you start now moving like the other guy.
And you forget to
100%.
be yourself. Be comfortable. Be yourself. People will love you for being yourself.
Right.
Yeah.
That's very true.
Because that's when you're the most consistent. And one thing that people don't enjoy is inconsistency.
You see, you're dropping bars now. Now you're saying like you have so many marshals. That's what I meant. Like, just supposed to go with the flow, bro. But yeah, like, thank you so much for your time. I'm really excited to see how far you're gonna take it, because it was really a shocker to see you on my TV. Trust me. And I'm like, I really study politics, so when I even saw you on that Al Jazeera docu, I was fucking shocked. I was like, this the person's gonna be on the next episode. Like, I found it like really, really dope, because I found.
Did you stumble upon it, or is it because you saw it on my page?
No, I stumbled upon it because I do this thing where I go on YouTube. I actually don't like Netflixes and all those other things, because I find them to be. I'm sorry. I always feel like
Don't be sorry.
No, I'll explain why.
Be honest.
I always feel like they're pushing a narrative. Like, Netflix can never give us uncensored information about something specifically. You know what I mean? I always feel like it's their job to push a specific propaganda. I always feel like everyone with the power to push a narrative will push a narrative. So I mostly...
Now I understand why it's such a contested space, yeah?
Yeah, like that's why I prefer to watch anything else like on a YouTube, because I feel like YouTube is least... what's this? It's the least... curated space of information, because anyone can post anything.
Yes.
And with anyone being able to post
there's
anyone.
also dangers with that, but anyway.
Of course, I mean, I don't watch one thing and call it a fact. Like, I'm gonna watch like probably 3, 4, 5 documentaries about the same topic. Nah, I want to watch 5 documentaries about the same topic. You know what I mean? Like. You never know. But like, so I was watching one documentary on Carte Blanche about the same thing that you were doing. Then I watched another one. Then I watched another one. The third one that I watched was the Al Jazeera one.
So you stumbled upon it.
Yeah, I stumbled upon it. And when I stumbled upon it, I was just like, oh shit, like, it's crazy. And it was even, I consumed the information even better because it was relatable, because the person that is telling me this information is someone I know on a personal level, you know what I mean? So, and because of that, I was just like, damn, I need to know more. And that's when dominoes, and that's, and it also taught me about when it comes to any type of information, it's just easier to consume it when it's coming from a relatable source.
What did I say to you? Relatability.
Yeah, come on, that's just how it goes. Like, for real, like, so it's just like, so I do that stuff to also kind of, I like tests, I like mental tests, so I want to see how I can persuade people, just solely based on politics, because politicians are the best persuaders of the world, you know what I mean?
The best in South Africa?
Yeah, we do. We've had a government for 27 years that haven't really done anything, so respectfully.
Who's throwing shade?
It's not shade. I'm just saying, respectfully, 27 years, you've been able to persuade about 58 million people to vote for you. Obviously not the full 58, but the majority means you're really good at talking. You know what I mean? Respectfully. I know you can't say anything on that, but
I'm not commenting.
Yeah, you can't. But yeah, everybody, thank you so much. Thank you so much for watching another episode of Dead Radio with your main man Bang is Dead and Madam Ziyanda Ngcobo. I'm just joking. But yeah, comment, subscribe, like the video if you should, and follow the comments for a competition we should be having. Shut up, BlackBrick. I might have forgotten to say that. But yeah, thank you so much for tuning in. If you didn't enjoy this, you're boring and you need to educate yourself. Thank you so much.
And you're live on Dead Radio.